Hi everyone, I've got Marcus Sharrad here from Marlborough College. He's Director of Coaching and Mentoring and runs their Exercise and Sports Science department. Mark's going to talk to us tonight about athlete choice and player ownership, and possibly from a director of sport point of view, how that could relate to our staffing needs as well. So first of all, thanks very much for coming on, Marcus, and then, share your wisdom with us.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Yeah, it's good to be on and have this chat. We'll see about wisdom, but I wanted to focus on the kind of how we can, within the environment that we're working within, both from staff and pupil perspective, create a sense of safety, if you like, of feeling like you belong within that environment, are valued as a learner, valued as a coach. Your input is valued and dealt with compassion, and so we're able to gain diverse opinions and the types of kind of lateral thinking, if you like, that can help drive programs forward. So if you're happy, I'll just lead in
Yeah, that'd
with
be
sort of
fun.
four elements to kick
Yeah,
that
yeah.
off.
Thank you. Go for it.
So so the first, if we looked at psychological safety theory, which I'm sure lots of PADIS members are aware of, the first would be that sense of inclusivity, of feeling like you belong to something that has a purpose, that has value. And at times, I think that Simon Sinek would say that to start with why, wouldn't he? What's the why? What's your purpose? And I think at times, particularly in schools, it's really easy to get into the sort of detail, the objective, what are we doing, and actually forget that subjective piece. So a sense of rounded inclusivity and belonging towards a something is sort of your platform, if you like, to build from. I do think that's important for pupils as well. I think they have to have a sense of historical context, for example, in certain schools with certain prestige for sport over a number of years, or just some kind of story, a project, what's happening here, how's it changed, what's we talk in my department about how our academic outcomes, we've increased numbers by astronomical amounts taking GCSE and A level, and results have followed that. And I think as of this year, as of this summer, we're now talking about 7 years in a row that we've had an average grade of whatever. That's our story, that's our strapline, that's something for my staff to kind of pin to their sail to the mast, if you like, and the same for the kids. The second would be creating a sense that everyone's a learner. So actually, you're safe in this environment. I'm here to coach you as an athlete and to make you better at what you do. And the same goes for our coaches. We've all been there and had members of staff who would rather be writing their reports on this particular afternoon, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, if you're involved in co-curricular sport, there's got to be a reason that you're there. There is a choice element. I really believe that. Obviously, mine's a full boarding environment, but for many PADIS members out there, people are genuinely there because they've chosen to be there. There is not a necessity for that member of staff to be out on that sports field. So feeling like you are going to gain something from the director of sport, the head of the sport, that's going to make you better at what you do. And that transferability into a classroom, by the way, because instruction and teaching is coaching, is classroom, is sports field, right? It's the same thing. From there, then I think creating that sense of relatedness, of acceptance of one's competence, then we can go towards a contributor level. So at that point, actually, you're valued enough that I want you to contribute something here. And that's where I think, as heads of sport, there's definitely an opportunity to be more deliberate, to seek feedback from coaches within the sport, from the director of sport above, or anyone that's got assistant directors of sport, etc. And certainly from athletes, from pupils. We talk a lot about pupil voice now, don't we? It's something that is absolutely foregrounded within the inspectorate. But pupil voice is important because of diverse opinion, and ultimately that's the major stakeholder. those are the types of things that can create some lateral thought that will allow programs to be better,
Mm.
to create that sense of, okay, I feel safe enough in this environment and valued to contribute. And then the final level is even to challenge, to offer some critique. But that's vulnerable,
Yeah.
that's exposed. And I think in a busy working environment, dare I say, many characters are protective of oneself to the point that we don't really seek that challenge. It's a real skill set to learn and hone, to actually go, I am open to hear criticism here.
How do you, yeah,
And from
yeah.
there, obviously, go, Chris, go.
I was interested there, as a coach or a director of sport, let's say, or a head of sport, how would you advise someone to create that environment where they welcome feedback? And it's
Mm,
okay to argue with me and criticize me and debate with me. That's
mm,
actually healthy. How would you
mm.
suggest, either with pupils or with staff, that we try and create that environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you there has to be a sense that the coach, member of staff, all the pupils, the athletes feel autonomous, feel like they're making choices that allow them to do those things. And actually, I've got to be really deliberate with that. So whether it's team meetings, whether it's feedback forms, these things are so easy now, aren't they?
Yeah,
Gone are the days that you have to print out a load of forms, chuck them in front of someone. You send it as a shared link on an email,
yeah,
or even sometimes I'll do this with our kids, use our virtual learning environment and set it as a homework
yeah.
with a deadline.
Mm,
Though you can be quite clever with that, and you almost nudge people in the right way to say, just be anonymize it if you want, or make it, you can make the choice whether it's anonymized. But the point is, I want you to realize, anyone that fills that type of thing in, if the questions are worded in the right way, then I'm looking at that and I'm going, fair play. Chris is exposing himself here.
yeah.
He's vulnerable here because I could really say what I think, and I think that creates it, doesn't it? Because it shows authenticity by
Yeah.
the leadership, by the head of sport.
I think that's great. I mean, one of the questions I used to ask, I used to try and have individual meetings with staff once every half time and term, and I had a list of questions, and one was, "Is there anything I've done in the last half term that you've struggled to get on board with?" So
Mm,
I give them permission to, say, actually, or if you were me, what would you do in the next term?
mm,
And just by asking those vulnerable questions, it
mm.
gives people permission to debate and share ideas, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And the wording of a question, this coming my coaching kind of experience coming out here, but you can word a question in such a way that it requires an answer.
Yeah,
And what? How have I let you down this term?
yeah,
How can I be better on match day?
yeah,
What annoys you about halftime communication?
yeah,
At your higher level
yeah,
athletes. How do you feel overloaded in training,
yeah,
cognitively, physically?
yeah. I think you're right
Yeah.
because it
Tell
gives,
me, tell me where. Tell me the worst training session we've done this term.
it gives people permission, doesn't it? That's
Yeah,
the
it's
key
it's
thing, as you
exactly
said,
the word. Yeah.
with the psychological safety. That sounds great. God, sorry, I interrupted
But
that.
but but of course, but in doing so, yeah, we are exposed and we're vulnerable. But do you know what? What are we here for?
Yeah,
Am I here to kind of massage my own ego and look for some confirmation bias that says, oh yeah, you're great, you're doing a really good job.
yeah,
Is everything all right with that? Is everything? Yeah, it was that good. I hear that a lot in my coach development stuff that I do as well. And it doesn't come from people aren't hiding. It's just natural human instinct
yeah,
to ask those quick questions at the end of a session, for example. Was everything all right there? It doesn't, you just go, yeah, yeah, it was great. Yeah.
yeah.
You're not looking for a question, what was the worst element of that training session?
And
Which athlete learned nothing?
and I think the good thing is there, you're role modeling good leadership behaviors for our pupils or your staff to use themselves, aren't you? Because if,
Mm,
particularly as a director of sport, if you are shown to be vulnerable by sharing those questions in front of the children to your staff or whatever, whether it's a under 12 boy, and they, that's powerful. And then hopefully that
yeah.
under 12 boy or girl will develop their leadership skills in that way as
What
well.
the other thing, of course, is that whenever you take in feedback, you should reflect on it and then mirror it back to the athletes, to the coach, and say, look, here's a thematic analysis, or here's some quotes that I've taken. These were general themes, and here's how I'm going to respond to them. Now, that doesn't always mean. I think we have to be really careful with this in the society that we're in. That we just go, oh, okay, I'll do that now. I'll stop doing that. I'll do that. We have to stay true to our values.
Yeah.
So we've got a brilliant new appraisal system here at the college from a teaching perspective, but it's quite exposing with pupil surveys. And I got my pupil survey back, and there were elements. It was nice to read on the whole, but there were elements, there were a few themes, and I responded to every pupil I teach and said, "This is why I personally, my values and what I believe and what I know about classroom teaching and learning. I won't be doing those Kahoot style quizzes in my classroom because I don't believe in them. And here are the reasons why. But thank you for your feedback."
Yeah.
And that could be the same. I really, in another way, there is another element. I'm making this more classroom focused than sports coaching. Apologies, but you can extrapolate it out. There was something else that I can't even remember what it was now, but I went, okay, yeah, enough people have said that. It's clearly a thing. Thanks so much for your feedback. Here's what you're going to see differently from me.
Yeah.
I think if you're willing to do that as a director of sport,
Yeah.
adult to adult, we're sat there going, you can't argue with that.
Let's say, just to finish then, Marcus, let's say I'm a director of sport and I want to start using these behaviors and role modeling this. What would be one piece of advice you'd give to a director of sport that, they can start with next week just to get this ball rolling?
I think unless you can coherently come on, jump on here now with you and I and tell us what your purpose, what your values are
Yeah.
at your school for sport, then you got a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume that most colleagues could do that.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's not my answer. My answer is have a look at all the ways in which your current processes, or rather other heads, because every sport operates differently, of course, don't they? When you're the DOS, look at your heads of sport and ask, where are the most kind of didactic
Yeah.
processes, the power relation processes, me adult, me coach, you teacher, or
Yeah.
kind of um, pupil, because we're going to strip that back, because that's not safety. That actually breeds like a lack of diverse opinion, because
Yeah.
people go, oh, I'm not going to listen to me anyway, so just turn up and they go, yeah,
Exactly
okay,
right.
yeah, I'm not going to just do my thing and go. I'm about at best 70% motivated.
Yeah.
um there's no intrinsic motivation there. I don't feel valued, I can't contribute, I certainly can't critique. So yeah, I think do a deep dive, if you
Yeah.
like, into where are we seeing the most autocratic processes,
Yeah.
and actually where are the most democratic, and start to kind of share.
Yeah.
Take your head of hockey and say, you go and have a look at the head of cricket in the nets. Listen, and specifically, I'd like you to listen to the way they question the athletes,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
That's brilliant
You've got to
because
be all seeing. You've got
yeah,
to all seeing, all observing.
there's so much expertise in departments, isn't there? Like you say, that was fantastic, Marcus. I hope directors of sport can take on some ideas, and I think that idea of ownership is only going to improve performance and creativity and belonging, and let's face it, enjoyment in the job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on. And obviously, any listeners want to drop me a line on LinkedIn. It's always good to connect with people. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Marcus.